Alright guys, so we got another fat tire, BMX style, cafe style, electric bike here. I guess you can also call these like moped style or motorcycle style. A lot of these out there now, and yet another one here. This is from Amazon, at least they sell it on Amazon. It's the AMYET G60. So this has two battery versions. I believe I have the 20 amp hour version and there's a 25 amp hour version. The one I've got here, the 20 amp hour version's coming in at a pretty good deal right now, about $950. So sort of a Super73 style bike coming in at probably less than half of what a Super 73 comes at. So 48 volt, 20 amp hour battery. They're estimating a range of between 30 and up to 80 miles, depending upon whether you're doing all out on throttle or if you're going a little bit slower and using pedal assist. So if you want to obviously eke out your range, you're going to use the pedals and go a little slower. So in the back here, we've got a huge 1,000 watt motor, peaks to 1,500 watts. We have some 7 gears here. This is a Shimano churning system, pretty standard on these e-bikes, 7 speeds. So we got a pretty large bench seat here. I typically sit kind of right in the middle here. You might be able to get a second person on the back, possibly. The padding is very firm, so I'm not sure how long I would want to ride on this bike. I'll let you know after I ride it for a while, and I'll give you my thoughts. And after at the end, during the riding portion, I'll show you when I'm riding it around. It does have dual suspension. You got a spring suspension here in the back for the rear wheel. Pretty big. I think that's like 1,000-pound suspension, pretty standard on these budget e-bikes. And then you have a front fork suspension, but there's no adjustment or lockout on here. So I'll have to see how well that's tuned. The way this came packed was a little bit different compared to most e-bikes. The front wheel was in between the forks, which is unusual, but the tire was completely uninflated, and the front disc was not installed, so you do have to install that. So it's a little bit different. The front headlight was installed, which is kind of weird. So actually that's a little bit harder to install than the disc, so no complaints from me. And then of course you got to install the front fender. The battery is removable, of course. You can charge it over here on this port, and there's an on-off switch. You have to turn that on to turn the bike on. There is a USB port here, USB-A port to charge up your phone, and then there is a LED on top. You can press that. That only works when the battery is turned on. So if you're going to be storing this for a while, always turn the battery off. And yeah, just a couple of thoughts here on the design. I like the mag wheels, of course. I always like mag wheels on these fat tires. Standard Chaoyang 20 by 4 inch fat tire wheels with this, the knobby wheel. So of course they make the standard amount of noise on roads. So if you are looking for a less noisy bike, and I'm going to primarily ride this on streets, probably want to switch out the tires. But if you're going off-road, then yeah, that's an appropriate tire. Frame construction, I think they're saying it's like a steel alloy. It's not an aluminum alloy, so it's a little bit on the heavier side. Put up the total weight of the bike here on the screen. Welds are decent. I don't see anything like glaringly bad. Powder coated black paint here. All the paint looks fairly well done. The frame looks overall fairly solid and strong, so I don't see any glaring problems with the frame. So take a look at the handlebar here, and you see you've got a huge display here. I'll turn that on in a second. Half twist throttle on the right side here. Got all these buttons over here on the side. You got your headlight, and these are like latching switches. Turn signals here. Headlight's pretty bright, and then the brake lever does activate the rear brake light, and you have your turn signals left and right. There are these switches that activate like that, and then you have your horn. You have your voltage reading here, so you need a key to turn on the bike here, but this key is different from the key. It's different from the key that's on the battery right here. So they provide two sets of 2 keys for the bike. So you need one to unlock the battery and one to turn on the bike. So we'll go ahead and turn on the bike, flip it on, get your battery voltage on this side over here. And then this huge display, really nice. Big speedometer reading. Yeah, I think we have 3 levels of pedal assist. You got your battery meter here and then your odometer right there. So super huge. This is one of the biggest displays I've ever seen, but it's like a LED display, not like one of those like LCD type display. It's kind of old school, retro looking. I kind of like it. So this button that says is green, is labeled S, is the speed level for pedal assist, and that's how you trigger the change. It's just right below the half twist throttle. So as you press that, it adjusts the speed level, so it just goes 1, 2, and 3, and then back to 1, like so. So kind of retro again on the way the buttons and everything works. They're pretty interesting. And then you have your standard 7-speed SIS shifter here for Shimano, pretty basic. Wire management is okay. Got your zip ties here. You got a lot of connectors for all of these little buttons and doohickeys that are on the handlebar. And so a lot of connectors here for everything. And then you got a bunch of zip ties down here in the center area. And you have this wrapping that goes around this down here. So once you get past all the connectors, nice and clean over here, goes through the frame over here, back out here, and then into the frame over here. So you got this like kind of square frame part over here, and the controller box, I believe, is under, yeah, it's under the seat right here. This is the controller box. You can see the cables getting wrapped around over here, zip tied over to the frame and up in from the battery. So overall, pretty clean on the wire management, I'd say, for this particular bike. All right, so we'll get this on the road here, give it a ride, and also how I feel it compares to some of the other these sort of cafe style, moped style e-bikes that I've ridden in the past. All right, pedal assist level 1. Use the throttle, get it going. Here we go. Alright, about 10, 11 miles an hour. Well, hitting 12 here in level 1. Okay, now we're in level 2. Getting about 16, 17, and level 2, 18. Okay, about 18 in level 2. Alright, let's go to level 3. So freewheeling now at 16 miles an hour. 18. 20. 21. Alright, throttle only now. Throttle only on level 1. Hitting about 13 on level 1. Go level 2. About 21 on level 2 on throttle. All right, level 3. Full beans on throttle only. All right, need a little more room. Alright, so just a couple of conclusions on the speed test. I noticed that when you're pedaling, you can't achieve as fast of a speed as if when you're just using throttle only. I'm not 100% sure why that is. Typically it's about the same for a lot of bikes, so it might be that maybe the gearing isn't optimal at the top end when you're pedaling. And I was freewheeling quite a bit at the towards top speeds. And the top speed I got on throttle only was about 28 miles an hour, and that was pretty consistent. So they're advertising 30 miles an hour on the product page. So it's possible that, maybe I'm just a bit overweight, over 200 pounds. That could be that they're doing the speed test with a rider that doesn't weigh as much. Maybe typically I've been seeing that for the advertised numbers, they usually put a rider on there. It's like around 155, 160, so quite a bit lighter than me. So that could explain why I'm getting a little bit less top speed. But for a 1,000-watt motor, I've tested a few other bikes. That's about what I got as well. So, this isn't limited like some of the other e-bikes that they try and sell as a class 2 e-bike. It's limited to 20 miles an hour. So I guess technically this is a class 3. And the reason why some of the other ones are limited is they want to sell to areas where there's restrictions on how fast the bikes can go or where you can take the bike. That's the only reason why, but this one doesn't have that restriction. So if you're looking for a bike that doesn't have that restriction, you want to go as fast as that motor will take you, this is one of those bikes. So overall, in terms of comfort, I felt like the suspension in the rear was doing a pretty good job. The front was fine as well. Obviously, this one here, you can't take it off-road if you want, depending upon how severe or aggressive you're going to be off-roading it. Hard to say how well that rear shock is going to hold up, because this is, it's like, I think it's like 1,000-pound rated, pretty standard, generic shock in the back. It's an air shock in the back. So it'll, those, I've heard that those do wear out over time. So it kind of depends on how much off-roading you're going to be doing. But obviously, if you're just doing like mostly street sidewalks and maybe a little bit of going to the grass and stuff like that, this should be totally fine in terms of being able to handle those bumps. In terms of the comfort of the bench seat here, it's a bit on the firm side. So while the shock does absorb a lot of the bumps in the streets and sidewalks and stuff like that without any issue, in terms of longevity, in terms of how long you can ride on that particular bench seat, if you're going to be going, for hours and hours. Again, not sure how long the battery's going to last for you. Probably, if you're going to run the whole battery down, it's probably fine. I don't see any reason why you can't last that long. But maybe if you're doing multiple batteries, then it could be a potential problem, because it is fairly firm. Although it's not uncomfortable, it's fairly firm. So if you're going to be on that bike for many hours, that could potentially present some issues in that case. But I mean, I think that's a use case scenario that not a lot of us actually do. So I would say for most people, the bench seat is going to be comfortable enough in terms of being able to stay on there for your 10 to 15, 20-minute rides, typically what most people are going to be doing with this e-bike. Something worth noting is that there is an online manual, a PDF file on the product page, and in that manual it states that this bike should come with hydraulic disc brakes, but it's actually mechanical disc brakes that are actually on this bike. So it's possible they made the manual at a time when they were speccing it for hydraulic disc brakes, but then decided to go with mechanical disc brakes instead. That being said, the bike, being about 80 pounds, as long as you're not weighing it down too much, the mechanical disc brakes did have adequate stopping power from full speed to zero. I felt like you could probably stop within about 20 feet or so. So it's okay. But yeah, of course, hydraulic disc brakes would be always better. But then again, you're probably can then move up in that price point, and that under $1,000 price point is kind of a sweet spot for a lot of people. And of course, there are a lot of bikes out there that are nicer that have hydraulic disc brakes, but they are in the sort of $1,200, $1,500 price range. So you do pay for that extra advantage of having the hydraulic disc brakes. Other than that, overall, pretty cool bike. Rides nice and smooth. Didn't feel like I had any major rattles or shakes or anything kind of weird going on in terms of the frame. I felt like it was solid all around. I'm not sure how I feel about the retro look of everything in terms of the display and the buttons, everything like that. A lot of these bikes, they have very simple controls and it's a very simple display. So I think for some people, they're going to really like this sort of look, kind of retro, you know, kind of in your face. And then at the same time, it does kind of scream that, yeah, you're riding an e-bike versus if you want to be a little more stealth, then maybe this isn't the bike to go for, because it is kind of in your face that, oh, this is screaming at some sort of an e-bike. Other than that, you know, I don't mind the big display or anything. I think it looks pretty cool. You just don't know how people that want stealth looking e-bikes would feel about this one, because it's probably not for them. Other than that, it doesn't really bother me too much. Alright, so that's going to cover for my review of the AMYET G60. Yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this bike and how you think it compares to some of the other ones I've reviewed. I think this one compares very favorably. It's right up there in terms of looks and in terms of overall quality. Anyway, I hope the information here in this video has helped you out in terms of your buying decision. If it has, I would appreciate it if you could give the video a thumbs up. That would be wonderful. Also, if you like these kind of videos and my reviews and want to see more in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. That would really help out the channel. That'll do it for this one, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.